right, thank you for staying with us. This is Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll be taking a look at the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning, and we'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper, where we have the lead story. It talks about security. It says, bandits kill many soldiers in Niger. It has the riders that says, pilot dies as NAV helicopter crashes. Military mom on attack on personnel. Senator urges deployment of operatives to troubled communities. Cleric, wife, children abducted in Kaduna. All the details on page 4 and page 6. You also have the pictorial there showing you burnt trees and cars and the ruins of houses after fire raged through the town of Lahaina in the west of island of Maui in Hawaii in the USA. Now, you also have above the lead story, more wars for passengers as NCAA slams fresh suspension on Max Air. Find that on page 20. CBN moves to rescue Naira, sanctioned banks over foul play. And that's on page 19. We fear cohesion will split our families in Nigeria, residents with dual citizenship on page 3. You also have below the pictorial, petrol now on 650 Naira in Borno, Oyo, Delta as queues return in Lagos. Work peacefully with NNPP government in Kano, Ganduje tells lawmakers on page 10. Ritualist disguised as laborers kill Ondo pastor on farmland on page 25. You also have UN, US, ECOWAS flay Niger's junta's plan to prosecute Bazoum on page 7. These are the main stories on Daily Trust front page.
Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. It leads with a story from the business sector. Forex crisis, CBN likely to flood markets with dollar. And we have the first rider that says Tinubu okays Apex Bank's plans to stabilize currency volatility. The second rider, how to strengthen Naira by experts. And we also have another rider here that says CBN hammer to fall on speculators. Beneath that, we have US presses ECOWAS to pile more pressure on Niger junta. And the first rider, no to Bazoum trial. Akiemi endorses action. And we also have Air Force probes helicopter shutdown claim by bandits. And just above the masthead, Otuneko or Tedola Field at center of Airbnb AGM. We also have NEMA warns of flooding in Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, 16 other states. Still on the Nation, marketers put petrol ex-depot price at 600 Naira. And we also have another story there. Akeredolu's wife hopeful governor will return soon. These are the major stories on the Nation newspaper for today.
All right. Now, on the Vanguard newspaper, this morning the lead story says it's economic shutdown if petrol price rises again, says Labour. You have, it accuses IGP, Justice Ministry of hijacking duties of Labour Ministry, demands apology from IGP for arresting NURTW boss, says Labour Ministry may go extinct if, and then you have the ellipsis there. Tinubu is concerned about economic hardships, says the presidency. Marketers urge FG to tackle forex challenge, say pump price may rise next week. You also have the pictorial there showing you footages showing how men in military fatigue beat up LASMA officials in Lagos yesterday. In reaction, the LASMA officials described their duty post. They described their duty post in the metropolis. Well, you find the details of the story. Now, this video went viral on social media yesterday. I'm sure you'll find the details of that story on the paper. We'll also see if we can get more updates on that. You have above the masthead Niger coupist to ousted president to prosecute ousted President Bazoum for high treason. Then 50 bandits, 13 military personnel killed in Niger State and in Niger State encounter. These days is Niger. Well, all right. The next story: Delta, Ondo, Sokoto, 16 others to experience flooding in August, says NEMA. You also have FG to revive, list moribund government assets on stock exchange. And then also Naira slides. CBN moves to crack down on speculators. Gani Adams petitions Kwara governor, warns of looming religious war. You have herdsmen kill 2 teachers, injure 2 others in Plateau School. Reps query JAMB over lopsided employment. Well, these are the main stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper today.
Over now to the Guardian newspaper. It has a lead story that says Tinubu's reforms face stress test amid labor threats, FX scarcity. And we have an illustration beneath that has the president on one hand and the fuel pump on the other. It's captioned, "Fuel at 670 naira per litre, set to rise further as naira weakens." And beneath that, we have Nigerians face more hardship as transport fares jump by 120.6%. Niger, U.S. mounts pressure on Tinubu as ECOWAS fumes over mixed signals. We also have the Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal. Ohaneze urges Nigerians to brace up for surprise verdict. Seplat Energy recommits to safety, environmental sustainability. Still on the Guardian, Nigeria accumulated 44 trillion deficit in 24 years. These are the major stories on the Guardian newspaper for today.
Right. Now, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper, where you have the lead story. Naira slump. CBN clamps down on speculators, restrict diaspora remittances. Acting CBN governor meets Tinubu, predicts heavy losses for forex speculators. FG records 0 oil earnings in 7 months. Naira crisis may worsen. You also have other stories. Ogun Kebbi Customs seize ammunition. Petrol foreign rise. You also have diesel price hits 950 naira per litre. Manufacturers fear job losses. You have FG extradites siblings to US for sexual extortion trial. Another story there, the footnote says, Oshun invokes no work, no pay for striking poly workers. Above the name tag, you have Niger. US backs ECOWAS, demands more pressure on junta. Bandits allegedly down NAF helicopter, kill 13 soldiers. NLC protest proposed fuel price hike, threatens fresh strike. So these are the main stories on the Punch cover page today. All right, well, these are the stories we have on our newspapers this morning. It's been a tough one, really, from what the stories are saying this morning, Stella. We are seeing this issue of the exchange rate. It's a big issue, and I'm not sure how the government is taking this in terms of the seriousness that it requires. There are a lot of analysts that said that, look, itself taking these 2 major decisions at the same time, that is the removing of the fuel subsidy and the unification of the exchange rate at the same time, it's an error. Some have described it as a mistake because these are major economic policies that have impact on virtually every single thing. Because of the fact that we import petrol, whatever happens to the exchange rate is going to have a direct impact on the price of petrol. And now you also have the removal of the subsidy, whereby Nigerians are now hit directly by global price of the product. Talking about crude oil. So if the global price of crude goes to as high as $150 or Nigerians get to feel the heat directly without any cushion, which, ab initio, the subsidy, was helping in that regard. So we have these twin policies at the same time. Is a big blow. I can imagine, how petroleum marketers are going to, how they are going to navigate this period, because some of them are already saying that they are going to suspend importation of the product, because clearly it's getting out of hand. You have a situation where both the buyer is complaining, the seller is complaining at the same time. So because for the person doing business is about profit, and if he continues to do this, and then there is no certainty, if the business is highly volatile, then how does he sustain a business that
I was thinking about it yesterday, and I'm thinking, even for companies, right? Because you need to plan for the month. This is how much I'm going to spend. This is how much I'm going to spend on administration. This is how much I'm going to spend to run the company. And this is how much I'm going to spend on staff salaries. But now you cannot, because you do not know how much petrol is going to cost. Because right now we're paying $6.15, between $6.15 and $6.20. Yes. But then we don't know how long that's going to last. Yes. For all you care, and they're already saying that it's going to happen next week. But Ayuba, the good thing is this: we have the Daily Trust that says CBN moves to rescue Naira, sanction banks over foul play. So yesterday, after a meeting with the president, we saw the current acting CBN boss saying that he has briefed the president on steps that would be taken to address the situation in a very short time, and that the president is very concerned about the development. So I'm hoping that, maybe something good will happen.
Yes, the president has promised in his address, I think it was his last address sometime last month, where he said that the presidency is going to look into the issue of the exchange rate if needs be. And I think that that time has come. We now have a need for the president to actually look into this issue, because, imagine if Nigerians are now having to buy petrol.
But the president said,
800
in his speech, he said, we will intervene when the time comes. My question now is, who determines that time? At what point will the president determine that, okay, the time has come for me to intervene because the Nigerians can no longer bear this? At what point?
Exactly. So it's a big question to ask at this point. But I think that this is the time, because, if the Naira continues on a free fall, as it appears now, then there's every likelihood that we may wake up one day and realize that we are buying petrol as much as 1,000 Naira, per liter. And that's, I can't imagine, because if at the moment
we wake up and realize that it's selling at that amount, because maybe people will not buy.
Yes.
Because
if things go on the way they are right now, we're talking about 617 Naira, and already people you could see how businesses are shutting down. Yeah. People are restricting their movements. People are exploring options of alternative days to go to work and working remotely and the rest of them. So if it gets to say 800 or 1,000, what then happens?
I don't want to imagine
to the productivity of the system, the economy, the very economy which the government says it wants to save and to boost and all that. So definitely there are repercussions, and that government must take this into account. So, let's get more perspectives on these stories that we have before us on the program. We have joining us, Amina Yuguda, one of our very own, to review some of the stories with us here on the show. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I would say your debut.
On the morning show, yes, but of course, you know that I'm part of the family. So,
all right. Well, a number of stories. Perhaps let's give you a chance to comment also on the issue of the exchange rate that is now on the free fall, and how that is also impacting on the price of fuel for Nigerians.
The thing is, for me, from the way I see it, with foreign exchange, we fixate a lot on the dollar. Yes, it's the international currency for business, but what about the BRICS, who are diverting from focusing so much on the dollar? Do they have, or do they know something that we all don't know? Because the speculations in the media in the newspapers, on social media, contributes to the downfall of the naira over the dollar. So think about it. Foreign exchange is not a physical market that you go to and exchange your naira and get a dollar. What value the naira has is from a ripple effect of a lot of things, a number of factors that we also contribute to. So yes, it's an indicator of the status of our economy, but what are we doing to make sure our naira has more value? At the end of the day, your naira has more value when people want your naira. Money is not, it's an idea. The money in your account, right? You don't, if you go to the bank, if every single human being goes to the bank today and says, oh, give me all my money, the banks can't do it. Yeah, they can't, because they don't have that money waiting for you to come and withdraw it. So it's a number of economic factors which largely relies on the value of goods and services. So what are we producing locally that the international market wants?
You see, I mean, that's the major problem at the moment. We have this problem and we're not producing. So we are not able to get in this money. So that is the problem.
So if we constantly complain about the problem and not do anything about it, will that problem go away?
Okay, the issue right now is this policy just came. You know, it was a new government, they just came in and then they announced this policy. So, yes, you want to boost production. But as you know, I mean, we have the issue of insecurity and all of that. So there are persons that feel that maybe some of these issues should have been fixed before this policy came in, so that, you know, it will not be so hard on Nigerians.
To be honest, the government should have put in place palliatives. In any government in the world that has the people at heart, there will always be a safety net first before you introduce harsh economic policies. And so that's the one thing that they haven't done properly. But do they have a genuine social register of the people who are the most needy in society? Because I'm very sure if they're handing out palliatives, there'll still be some backdoor, maneuverings and shenanigans for some people to benefit more than the people who actually do need it. So yes, there should have been a palliative, a social safety net in place first, but then instead of focusing on the constant free fall of the naira against the dollar, we should be doing something to change it. So that's
something is what, a lot of times economists and people say, well, reduce consumption, increase production. Do more of export, and do less of import. We should be able to produce what we consume, is, say, for instance, in terms of food and other basic things. I mean, we may not be able to do everything, because after all, no country can survive as an island, but at least we should be able to produce basic things such as food. I mean, good enough that in the last 8 years of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, there has been this conscious effort, albeit not enough, to focus more on local production. For instance, in agriculture, you talk about rice and the rest of them, all of this conscious effort, but we have not seen that replicated in other sectors of the economy.
Even the rice,
so for
we do not have enough of rice, as you know. Even the rice, we do not have enough.
So for instance, yesterday,
gap.
Yes, you have one of our guests, talk about the issues around, say, for instance, government prioritizing local products, patronizing local products. He gave an example with, say, members of the National Assembly, for instance, who have budgeted, about 70 billion naira for working tools. They said equipment, and I'm sure official cars are part of it. How many percent of that amount is going to go into local products? Those official vehicles, are likely going to be coming, be foreign cars. When we have local assembling plants here in Nigeria, which could be patronized. People talk about Innoson and the rest of them, So things like that, these are the things that will help with capital flight, and it will help with boosting the strength of the naira and all that. But it doesn't look like we're paying as much attention. We only pay lip service to these things.
Ayuba, what I have seen, and I mean, I would like you to speak to that, is the fact that people come and say, okay, reduce our consumption of foreign items and consume what we have. But what do we have really? What is production? 2 days ago or yesterday on the front of the Daily Trust, we had a story where farmers had fled 2 communities because of attacks by bandits. And then today we see bandits have killed so many soldiers. The farmers in these communities are moving. This is rainy season. They are supposed to be farming. So we have fundamental issues that affect productivity, which have not been addressed. How do we move forward?
Without security, that's the foundation for any development. If it's insecurity, the ripple effect is not just within the local communities. Even international foreign investors will not come to the country if they believe that your market is unsafe. So insecurity has to be tackled effectively. For example, with bandits and banditry, the Nigerian military, the police, the security forces in general have to focus more on intelligence gathering. Use the local community actors, community policing. Do not wait until the bandits attack and then react. You should be preemptive, you should be ahead of the security breaches, not waiting until something bad happens and then you're rushing, trying to, save the situation. And so with insecurity, we do know that in rural communities, at the grassroots, bandits are preying on farmers and people who are supposed to be producing for us. And so why is there not a concerted effort to nip this in the bud? Okay. That's the problem.
All right. I've seen some persons say on social media that maybe this government, should have given itself 1 year. I mean, that's what they are saying. They should have given itself 1 year to look at insecurity, look at other issues surrounding productivity and all of that before coming up with the subsidy removal and the unification of the Naira. Just 1 year, maybe.
To be honest, if you want to change or to develop, there will definitely be growing pains. We must acknowledge the fact that the subsidy removal was something that we needed to do. And we continue to defer it. It hurts us more. That's the honest truth. My only concern is that there should have been a plan in place.
Yes, that's what those people are saying. 1 year to put those plans in place?
No, but 1 year to not remove subsidy is just delaying. It's like, a patient who has cancer. You have cancer, but you say, oh no, let me just enjoy eating all the kinds of food I want, enjoy 1 year before my surgery.
But the 1 year, it's to give you time. Because for instance, you have a president on the day of inauguration, in his very inauguration speech, decided to say, subsidy is gone. And then that was it. No cabinet members, no advisors, no first-hand insight on what's really happening in the government, no any kind of assessment of the books or the records or the documents before you as president. Nothing of that sort.
Well, the president...
And he decided that it should go. And that's why you see all the crisis that we're having now. But people believe so much that if the president had perhaps given himself time to at least go into the office
and understand
all the challenges before taking a decision, because you see, it's like putting the cart before the horse. You have taken a decision, and now it's hard to go back on it because you have already taken a decision, and you want to be seen as, oh, I want to walk the talk, I want to move fast, I want to do this. Another excuse given is that, well, there's no budgetary allocation for subsidy for the next after June of this year and all. But who says that there can be no supplementary budget? Who says that cannot be done? I mean, this is just to buy time for you to at least look at what needs to be done quickly. Now, for instance, nobody is talking about our refineries that we've always talked about as part of solution to this problem. We are not talking about that. No probe, no investigation. How much have been spent? What can we do? How much time will it take for us to get these refineries to work? We have the Dangote refinery, for instance, which was hurriedly, I would say, commissioned, if you like, because we were told that the production in the Dangote refinery will begin by the end of June or in August. But it doesn't look like there is any kind of production that is going on right now. Instead, what we are hearing is that Dangote has been given license to import petrol from outside the country. So when you hear such things, you kind of question, what really are we doing? Are we just making pronouncements and taking decisions to win, cheap political goals, or really because we really want to see the change in place? These are some of the concerns that people are raising.
As the president of the Federal Republic, the president should know that everything he says will have effects and repercussions for the country, and not just the citizens, but even our international image. And so saying subsidy is gone on during his inauguration wasn't the best move, actually, but also the speculators, the marketers who decided overnight to increase their fuel price just because the president made a speech and they anticipated that, this is the time to profit off of it, because they already had their
stock products.
Yeah, and so they
on the old rate.
Yeah,
actually.
so that was just speculation, and that tells you.
Yeah, so the argument here is that if they are to sell based on the old price, what happens when it's time for them to go back to the market?
Well, when they have to go
That's
back.
the argument that they put forward there.
But they purchased that already. And so why not sell at the price you've ready?
Okay,
who's going to pay for the
let's
bridging claims?
They get financing.
From where? Anyway, let's imagine that the president he's made this announcement. Let's say maybe it was wrong or right. That has passed. He's done it. Is 3 months into that announcement, no palliatives of any sort. We heard him speak about over 2 weeks ago where he talked about the buses and all of that. I was thinking that by now I would see brand new buses on our streets, and I'm not seeing anything like that. So
I believe that the idea was to push it to the state governments because actually the government is closest to the people as the local and state governments.
No, but he said he was going to the federal government.
Federal policy initiative to help cushion the effects of the harsh economic conditions. But with government and everything else, it's not just saying it and it will be done. They have to go through several processes. For instance, if you're buying, even in a small company, there's a whole department, procurement.
Can we afford this delay?
We can't afford this delay, but we need to do things right, because there are people, there are vultures waiting for an opportunity like this to profit off of it. And so at the end of the day, the people who need the benefits the most will not get it.
Which is why
we do not have a social register.
Which is why those who are
advocating, yes.
Which is why those who are advocating for that 1 year period, or maybe 6 months, if you don't want, or to
continue to bleed,
at least to make this, to
the
put
government.
This,
you need money
to put this
to make the economy
right now the masses are bleeding.
Now let's talk about the economic impact of this decision. You have Labour threatening. Well, Labour has been threatening anyways since the past few weeks, since this policy came in place. They've been threatening, and they are threatening that if the price of petrol goes any higher, they are going to strike again. We don't know what form or shape the strike is going to take, whether it's in terms of industrial action, or is it a protest, or what, but they are saying that they are going to strike. The second angle to this is the fact that you have people now shuffling, or you have people reducing the number of days they go to work. We are now seeming to normalize this idea of working 2 days in a week or 3 days in a week, for the rest of the days, work remotely or whatever, which we know in many instances may not really be that effective. So you have a problem of productivity dropping. You have a situation where businesses are now constrained as to how much they can do, in terms of productivity. They are having to now pick and choose what to do. They are having to relieve some of their staffs because of the redundancy that this is likely going to cause and all that. So when you think about this, we are talking about increase in unemployment at the same time. We are talking about inflation, people unable to buy what they need to buy. So at the end of the day, instead of creating a solution, we are creating more problems with these policies, don't you think?
Yes, the people on the streets, the average Nigerian, myself inclusive, are finding it really hard to afford the basic necessities of life in terms of food, in terms of transportation. Everybody, I don't think there's anybody outside of government who's not feeling the heat right now. But if you listen to the experts on economy, their take is that subsidy is not in the long term beneficial to the Nigerian state. I'm not happy that I'm paying more for fuel. I'm not happy that I'm paying more every time I go to the market, every single day. If I bought beans yesterday for 200 naira, tomorrow it'll be 300 naira. So everyone is feeling the heat.
I mean, there's this other little problem. There's this other little problem. We've had some elderly people come on this show, and they said that there was a time in this country they were told to tighten their belts and things were going to get better, and that it didn't happen. So there are some Nigerians that are feeling, what if we're tightening our belts and nothing actually gets better? There are some Nigerians that feel that way. For instance, there are some Nigerians that are querying the fact that this administration has the highest number of minister nominees since 1999. At the time, you're saying tighten your belts. So, and they mixed signals from...
Definitely. The signals are definitely mixed. And it's quite irresponsible even for you to say that people should tighten their belts and you don't make the same concession. I believe, and I've always said this often, that the cost of governance in Nigeria is astronomical. It's just the extravagance. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way you make governance, the right kind of governance if it's so profitable. I believe that leadership or governance should be about service to the people. And so you're not going into office to make money. You're going to serve. And I find it really hard to understand how most Nigerian politicians, go into governance, because they've invested prior to elections. They've spent so much money, they've paid. So it's payback time when they go in. So instead of thinking about policies that would favor the average Nigerian, they're thinking about how to recoup the losses they made. So it's essentially a business transaction. And so yes, the government, the federal government, the state and the local government need to make sure they cut all the excesses. But one thing I want people to think about is at the local government, the grassroots, what is going on a daily? The revenue, you do know that at the local government, first of all, there's in the markets, for example, every day you go into most major markets in the country, there's someone collecting taxes every single day. The person who sells tomatoes on just a small corner at the market, at least the tax enforcers collect maybe 200 naira, 500 naira every single day from that person. This is money or revenue that they don't account for. Where's that money going into?
So perhaps this is a question
we need to putting.
This is a question
there needs to be revenue. There has to be a concerted effort towards revenue accountability. Yeah, because the money is there. A few people are profiting off of it, but there's no accountability. There's no transparency. So that's where the problem is.
So this also goes to touch on the issue of corruption in the system, goes to the issue of our political culture in Nigeria. If you talk about the local council, local governments, and we've always harped on how governors in states have led in their states with regards to the local governments. The local governments are not even considered as the third tier of government anymore. They are only looked at just as an expansion or extension of the second tier of government, which is the state government. So if you look at governors' handling of the local councils, basically they are weakened, and this revenue you talk about ideally should go to the state revenue generating agencies. But how much actually goes in terms of remittance? How much actually goes to these state revenue agencies? And then can we really account for?
I'm very sure they can't account for it.
So these are the things. And if you look at there's almost no way you can separate the politics at the subnational level from the issues of corruption and some of the issues that you have highlighted here. So I hope that we do something differently, because this has been the tradition. We have always seen it almost in every system, almost in every government. We are hoping that the current administration will come in differently. At the moment, not many people are very convinced about the posture of the current administration on the fight against corruption. A lot of people who have been fingered, with one allegation or the other. We see how they're being rewarded with appointments, and all of that. And it just looks like...
In fact, only yesterday there was an open letter to the president from the former Vice Chairman North, Salisu Lukman, who said that certain appointments, makes people query his posture on corruption.
Exactly. So these are some of the issues that we are seeing, and we hope that perhaps further into the administration, we'll be able to see how this administration is going to be different in terms of tackling all these issues that we've always talked about and we've always dealt with in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Amina Yuguda, for joining and sharing your perspectives with us on the newspapers and the stories we have today.
My pleasure.